Okay, Miss Pelin Esmer, thank you for arriving in Skopje and here on Philosophical Film Festival. It's a great honor to have you here, and we are happy to talk with you and of course to see your film tonight here in Cinematheque.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here with my film. Thank you.
Okay, I will start with the first question and I will read, as I said. You tell wonderful stories in your works with strongly built characters. So, how do you create the scripts? Do you consult some playwrights, maybe writers, or do you do it alone, possibly with sharing your work in progress with some friends? Can you tell us?
Most of the time I write alone, except something useful that you're going to see tonight. My co-writer was Barış Bıçakçı, a very well-known, very good writer in Turkey. Other than something useful, I always write alone, like this new one I'm preparing now. How do I work? I take my time. I'm patient when I'm writing. I believe time is a very good teacher to write. So I allow myself to write and then stop and then think again, and then I go to locations. I try to find the locations as early as possible because the locations really influence me a lot. Influence me and the script a lot and my characters a lot. So when I fight with myself a lot when I write. It's hard to convince that yes, now it's ready to be a good film. So as I say, I take my time, maybe sometimes 1 year, maybe sometimes 2 years, and then I share with a few close friends and see what touched them, how if I could reach, and then I think again, and this is it.
Do you look for some models, some examples of what you are searching in your characters, in some other stories, maybe in some other films? Do you ask from your actors to see some films or to read some literature before they start to work with you on some film?
It depends really on the film and the character and the actors, but I like to share books and films, mostly books, which inspire me, which provoke me, which make me imagine. Because when I write, before I write script, I have the feeling that the books are the most provoking elements for me, because when I don't see it visually, when it leaves me a more open space for me to imagine, and it really triggers the brain, like sounds. Of course, some images that's stuck in my mind. So I like to share some books or some photos, some music, sometimes a scene from a film I like. It depends on the character and the actors, and but I like to talk about life with them, about them, about me, and also.
In what ways has your primary area of study, anthropology, sociology, I learned, influenced your choice of subject matter in filmmaking, particularly when making documentaries? And has it affected the way that you approach your protagonist or characters?
I think so. I studied sociology, as you said, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm glad I did I didn't know I would be a director at the beginning, but I'm glad I studied sociology. Otherwise, I would like to study literature or philosophy. Still, if I knew I would be a director. I'm sure it influenced me, and at least it's really triggered my curiosity about people. I mean, without curiosity, I don't believe in either science or in art. You know, curiosity is what is the fuel of both science and art, I think. And sociology is a great atmosphere for you to question about people, about how they live. It's a lot of questions after questions you can build up as you are reading a lot of different articles, books, or discussions in your school. So I think it really triggered my curiosity about people. But also probably it might have helped. I don't know how much of it is from my education or some part is from my character maybe, but especially when you're making a documentary, I like to keep the eye level. For me, it's very important with the protagonist, with the people whose life you are actually a visitor to their life. They invite you to their real lives. Mm-hmm. So you need to act a little bit like a guest. So for me, this eye level with my protagonist is very important, and not to keep it low or high. Mm-hmm. It's a very tricky, difficult balance, and maybe reading all these questions in sociology, discussions, could have helped me to get this balance, maybe.
In that sense, I was curious, why did you choose Shakespeare play as basis for Queen Lear? Was it something that the women had chosen previously themselves, or was there any other reason? I consider Shakespeare to be quite universal, but in practice, how easy or difficult was it to adapt the text to the circumstances in rural Turkey?
No, it was not their choice. It was my choice, my suggestion, let's say, because with these same women from Aslanköy, Mersin, I made my first film, The Play, in 2005 with them, and it is when they first started their in theater. And in the film, they were acting a play about their own life stories. They put their own life stories on stage, and this was a big excitement for them. They prefer, of course, that. And but years later, when I decided to meet with them again and do this Queen Lear, they were traveling all these very, very small villages with some traditional. I wouldn't call it stand-up, but it's a traditional village place, and we shoot that as well, of course. And I traveled down with that, but there was something missing for me. I mean, because I wanted to talk more about them and life, about age, about death. And I wanted, and these concepts are very ontological, very universal, you know. So I thought, why not Shakespeare? And these ladies are so smart and very adaptive. I asked their director, you know, what do you think about Shakespeare? He said, why not, you know? With another group, I adapted King Lear before, and these ladies would do it perfectly. I said, yes, King Lear is, and it's a very nice, I wouldn't say coincidence, but it really fitted my questions, because these ladies got older, I get older, we're getting aged, we're getting closer to death, how life changed, how experiences in life and their experiences in theater touch them, change them. So, and the concepts in King Lear, I could find very very nice commonalities that could speak to all of us. You in Macedonia here, or in Mozambique, or in France, or in Turkey. And Shakespeare is ageless, and it has no land. He has no land, and that's why I have great respect to him. And when we speak about concepts like that, when we speak about life, I mean, who else to go? Shakespeare was a very good friend to to go.
Yeah. As you mentioned, similarly to here in Macedonia, in Turkey as well, you are largely divided society, where you have one way of life in the big cities and a completely different situation in the small ones. In the more remote, isolated regions, where the position and role of women largely depends on the traditional, patriarchal, religious codes of behavior. I have the impression that in some of your films you are trying to show this woman's fight for a dignified life. In that sense, do you think that there are enough films made in Turkey by authors who are trying to help women and make them aware of their rights?
Yes, I think, and more. But the point is, maybe we are having more, let's say, I hope even more, it will be in future, that more women characters. I mean, but I'm not writing women characters just because they're women, because I'm interested in those characters, you know, in their lives. And I don't, when I write, I don't differentiate between my men and women characters. They are there with their stories, with their struggles, with their fights in different ways. But yes, in my films you can see a lot of women characters who are quite strong, who choose to fight in different ways, like these ladies in the village, who has, before they never saw theater in life, one day they discover, because their kids were acting in school, and they decide to make theater. So they discover theater themselves as a emancipation, as to gain their lives, their confidence. It really changed their lives. So these women find their ways to speak out by theater, by art. And my other characters have different ways to say their words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with words. But I like to have characters, either it's women or men, who I can present you with both their weaknesses and strongness to make it real. But at the end, I mean, no matter how, I'm not a very optimist person, but I try to keep the little hope to move on. And so I try to find that in my characters. Mm-hmm. Let's say in the woman characters a lot.
About your reception, particularly in the Western audiences, have they, in your opinion, been able to relate to and somehow recognize themselves in your protagonists and characters without exotifying them, like from exotic countries, from Eastern Europe or Asia? Without setting the limit between us, like more civilized people here and poor people out there. Did you have some impression that maybe somehow these audiences firstly have stereotype of Turkey as less developed country, and then it changed their perception?
Well, first of all, let me say we are artists. We make art, and our we don't have a mission to change the perspectives of people abroad. It's not my job to. If people want to change their perspectives, they should go and see and be curious. And there are a lot of ways to learn and to question and to change your perspectives. I'm making films, and of course, I make my films in my country, in Turkey, and my characters are from my country, and but they are quite realistic films, but fiction, also documentary, but fiction. So they may represent some people in my country, and not at all for the others. So I advise them always when I go to screenings and in the question and answer sessions. Sometimes I get, "Oh, is it really like this in Turkey?" First of all, I find this question very interesting because when I see a French movie, for example, I don't think of asking the director, "Oh, is it really like this in Paris or in Marseille?" You know, I don't watch a film try to make a judgment or come to a conclusion about a culture. For that, you need a lot of other things. You can get some impressions, but questions more. So they may have. What would be great is if they can see little details that can help them to question things that they haven't thought before. That's the worst, the best case it could be. But I don't think I'm not a sociologist. I study sociology, but I choose to be a filmmaker. I'm not an analyst. I'm not a researcher. So I make a film, so I would like my audience to enjoy it as a film, and if they get some impressions or curiosity of the world I present, it would be lovely to have them to Turkey and be our guest and have their own experience. You know, I think this is what I prefer.
In one of your interviews, you mentioned that digital technology has led to increased democratization of filmmaking. Do you think that this is one of the contributing factors that has led to more women in filmmaking, especially in the traditionally more male-dominated jobs such as cinematography, editing, sound?
Yes, women, also young people and people who doesn't have access to to money or to sector. It really gave the chance to people, if you really have to, but this is important, if you really have to tell something, because it's not necessary. I mean, we don't have to, or we can write a book, we can write a poem, or we can just talk with friends, we can just make a diary, or we can make a beautiful film or a music piece. But if we need that, we should, and to make a film, because it's, I think, the most expensive art so far, you need a lot of means to make it. So you need to have very good reason and very good passion to do it. So if you have this passion, and if you have a good story that you really feel that you need to tell, this digital technology helped you to find a way, because it was very, very expensive. You know, when I first started, the small videos were just about to come. So and it's really gave me a courage. Like, I did my very first film, Collector. It was a documentary with a digital high-8 camera that. I spent very little money, you know, and it was okay, even if it didn't become a film. And I followed my uncle, and later on I make a fiction called 10 to 11 with him. But this was my very, very first movement in cinema, to check myself, because it's cheap. Because I have one camera, luckily, and I shoot, I make mistakes, I try. I edit, and at the, of course I hope it to be a good film, and at the end it ended to be. I was happy at least. And then I said, yes, I want to continue. So without spending all this money or asking people money, you know, because money brings a lot of restrictions, many different kind of restrictions. I mean, I try to keep my authenticity. I do what I really believe in, but when you have limited money, you have limited time to shoot, you need to have a crew for that, and so especially for the first films or for small budget films, and I think we should keep on thinking like that. Even though I make now big budget for my country films, I try to sometimes say, you know, I should think also small films that I can do with small crew, fast. Like this Queen Lear I did, for example, with a bank credit. I had 3 weeks or 4 weeks to find the money and to get the crew. So this documentary and this digital camera, this small digital camera I could afford to by, allowed me to make this film. So like me, it's for the women, for the young people, for people who doesn't have access to sector. I think it's really helped. But I suggest that because it's easier, it doesn't make the rest of the story easy, because okay, when you make the film, it doesn't finish, and you need to find a way to reach your audience, your people, to share, and that's another story. That's why I say you should really believe in what you are doing.
Okay, and final question, and last. One of the ideas that you tackle in the film Something Useful is that life spent on art or poetry can serve as a cathartic release and help us overcome the drudgery and even absurdity of life, especially life in the big cities. This reminds me of the concept of healing, regardless of whether it's from individual or collective trauma, which is becoming very popular in recent years, especially since the onset of the pandemic. Do you believe that art has that kind of therapeutical potential, and can it really give us a meaningful respite from the burdens of modern reality?
Yes, yes, I'm quite. I can easily say yes. I believe, and the name of the film also questions that something useful, and. As an artist or as someone who has the hope to get healed from art, we find ourselves in the middle of this dark reality. Is it really useful, you know? And something inside me screams, yes, it is. Even if sometimes it looks quite useless and meaningless in this dark reality we live. I mean, most of the time it's the only meaning I can find to continue to life, and I believe it can really heal people in very different ways. But healing, by healing, I think you don't mean that either to get great, to feel wonderful, whatever. No, try to feel, to feel life, you know, and to get close to yourself. Try to understand yourself as much as you can, or to survive, or to appreciate what you have in life. I think it's aesthetics, beauty, and art are very helpful, I think, in that.
Thank you.